Judith, thank you. They're some of the most powerful people in our society, but the vast majority of judges here are men. UTV Live Tonight has spoken exclusively to one of the most senior female judges in Northern Ireland about the lack of women in top legal jobs and what can be done to resolve the gender gap. In a moment, I'll be chatting to Felicity Huston and to Jane Morrice. But first, this report from Sarah Clark.
There are so many now good women out there at the right level in the profession that undoubtedly there will be a lot more women who will come forward and will be successful in appointment.
There comes a point at which you have to wonder whether the process can be seen to be legitimate if it's not representative of all cohorts in society, and I think the absence of a woman is a problem.
If you just wait for society to change and accept the inequalities of society, then you're saying that this is actually okay.
The majority of students graduating with law degrees and qualifying as lawyers in Northern Ireland are women. It's been this way for years, and yet only a very small number reach the top tiers of the profession, and none have taken any of the most senior posts in the judiciary. Other traditionally male-dominated jobs here, including politics and the police, have women in high-ranking positions. So why is the law lagging so far behind?
We still have in this society the sense that women are channelled into routes at the bar particularly, which means the sort of work they're doing is not considered to be the judicial, for a judicial appointment, senior judicial appointment. A lot of them are channelled into family law, etc. Now, I think that's changing a bit in legal circles across the world, and I think it's changing here, but it's taking quite a long time.
Judge Fiona Bagnall is the presiding district judge at Laganside Courts in Belfast. The 51-year-old is also a wife and a mother. She was a solicitor specialising in family law before her move up the career ladder, but she accepts it hasn't been easy.
As a woman, I felt that I wanted to be taken seriously and I wanted to be respected, so my drive was always to try and do everything to the very best of my ability so that all of my work was as good quality as it could be, and that I felt that by doing that then I was allowing myself to be really respected as a good practitioner and a good solicitor.
Now Judge Bagnall is one of the most well-known and well-respected members of our judiciary.
You could have anything from a murder to a disorderly behaviour. You do something which is very sensitive, very controversial, high profile. You just don't know what that is, so you just have to be prepared to deal with that as it comes along. But as I say, with practice you usually sort of can pick up the body language and get the cases done without too much controversy.
It's here in court number 10 that Judge Bagnall presides, dealing with all kinds of criminal cases, but she's one of very few women in our judiciary. In fact, the most recent statistics show that almost 80% of judges are men. And while there's been a concerted effort to increase female representation, none of the top posts are held by women.
If it is the case that the most qualified applicant is a man, then I think they do have to have the job. However, there may come a time when we have to think more broadly about quotas, because I do think it's equally important that judges are seen as representative of the society in which they're judging.
And do you think then that that would come in the form of positive discrimination?
Well, I think ultimately it might have to.
Without actually being discriminatory against an individual man in favour of a woman, you have to say, well, this group of people are all qualified to do this job, and so we must actually bring women in, equalise the system now, so that in the future it can be organic. But I think until that actually happens, the grassroots approach has to just wait.
The very fact that you have women in responsible jobs is a starting point, because I have been surprised, because you don't see yourself as being somebody that others look up to. At least I don't see that. And then some young solicitor or young barrister will say, oh, we watched you and we thought you were good, or whatever it was all about, and you know, that was great, and we're going to try and I think, gosh, you know, you suddenly realise the responsibility that you have in those circumstances.
So how do these young women at Queen's, the next generation of lawyers, feel as they embark on their legal careers?
It helps to motivate you and to ensure that women are better represented at the highest level of the judiciary. So in a way, attempt to work hard and try and ensure that, you know, that isn't the case in the future.
For me personally, as I've grown up and as I've, you know, done my masters and different courses and really thought long and hard about what I want to do, I've become more and more motivated, and it makes me want to work harder to achieve my goals.
There's no doubt the gender profile in law is changing, but just how long will we have to wait before we see more women at the very top of this profession? Sarah Clark, UTV Live Tonight.
Watching that report in the studio, Felicity Huston, former Commissioner for Public Appointments, and Jane Morrice, who's just been appointed a Vice President of the European Economic and Social Committee in Brussels. Felicity Huston, why are more women not breaking through at senior levels in law?
Oh, I know, it's rather depressing, isn't it? I was thinking of 30 years ago as a young student, all the young female lawyers who would have been at university with me, and you wonder where they all are. They haven't become judges. I think one of the problems in the legal profession is that, as was said in your film, women tend to be channelled into certain areas within the law which don't lend themselves then to moving on to the next stage of becoming a member of the judiciary. And I think that's, hopefully those young women have all heard that very clearly, that they need to plan their career.
Does it have anything to do with the fact that they get married and they have children and that becomes a distraction?
Well, that's
along the way?
that's an issue not just within the legal profession, but with any career pattern. Women have this unfortunate habit of having children, and then they have to go home in the evening and make meals and bath babies and do homeworks and so on. And I have to say that doesn't tend to be quite the same with dads.
So what you're saying is that in the legal profession they are being basically corralled into silos?
Well, I think they are certainly encouraged to work in the more the family environment, the family law environment. They're encouraged to go into litigation where there'll be a lot of mediation and so on. They would tend to not be encouraged so much to go in and stand up and argue in the hard criminal cases.
Jane Morrice, is it a problem in public life generally?
It certainly is, without question. And in fact, in preparation for this, I had a look at the statistics Europe-wide, and not just judiciary, but looking at, for example, 96% of chairmen in Europe are men. 96%. 86% of non-executive board members Europe-wide are men. There's a huge gap.
Is that because women are not crying foul loudly enough?
Well, they're starting to. Commissioner Reding in Brussels has put forward a directive, and the Economic and Social Committee has an opinion on it, trying to get more women on boards. They're looking for 40% of non-executive positions on boards to be women by 2020.
What are the obstacles? And is it that women just have a lower expectation?
There's a combination. Obviously, there's a problem about reconciling work and family life. Obviously, there's a problem of the culture of the old boys club, which is very, very prevalent, certainly in this part of the world. And also, there's a problem of self-confidence. And interesting, in my work, I've also been chair of the Women in Local Councils initiative here, and it's been quite successful in what it's doing, getting women into local councils. Chief executives, women chief executives are coming to the fore now in local councils, and that's very important.
Felicity Huston, in your experience, what have the obstacles been?
I think it's a combination of things. It's the time commitment, it's the balancing, the juggle, as they refer to it. The process to apply, particularly for public bodies, is very off-putting to women. Their particular skills are not necessarily recognised by the three men who are interviewing them for the particular position. Those sort of problems.
If you had the opportunity, what would you do?
Oh, I would stop competency-based interviewing, which anybody who's watching this who has applied for public appointment will know is a horrendous system. I would actually ask people why they wanted to apply for a public body, what they thought they would bring to it, and how they thought they might provide better services for us, rather than asking them to give an example of their involvement in preparing a strategic plan.
Jane Morrice, Fiona Bagnall has spoken out publicly. There aren't always women prepared to come in and join a studio discussion, unlike you two tonight.
Well, it's a pity, because in fact that's another initiative I'm involved in, Women Seen and Heard, getting more women onto the media to act as role models in all different areas. It's very, very important.
Thank you both very much indeed for coming in tonight.